The Guy Benson Show.
Back here on the show, glad you're with us. I'm Guy Benson, and I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Glenn Youngkin, businessman and the GOP gubernatorial nominee in Virginia. Glenn, welcome back.
Guy, thank you for having me. It's great to be with you, and I just so appreciate you having me back on your show.
Oh, of course. I want to have you at least every month up until the election in November, because I think it's a really, really important one, not just in Virginia, but nationally, as we look at the overall landscape politically heading into the 22 midterms. I think Virginia could be a bellwether, and I want to talk about the state of the race in just a moment. But before we get to that, the first time we had you on, shortly after you won the nomination for the Republicans, one of the questions that I asked you in that interview was in response to some attacks from Terry McAuliffe, who's now officially the Democratic nominee in this race. He had introduced you, at least through his Twitter feed, to Virginians, calling you a believer in the big lie about the 2020 presidential election. I asked you about that, and you said, in no uncertain terms, that Joe Biden did win the election. This is a smear from Terry McAuliffe. But there's an interesting piece of audio from after the 2000 election, when Terry McAuliffe was the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. He had this to say in a public speech in 2001 to cut 24.
And you know this, if Katherine Harris, Jeb Bush, Jim Baker, and the Supreme Court hadn't tampered with the results, Al Gore would be president. George Bush would be back in Austin. And John Ashcroft would be home reading Southern Partisan magazine. We won that election because the country is with us, not with them.
Okay, we won that election, he claimed, falsely. He talked about tampering with the outcome, a conspiracy theory. And Glenn, I just find it very interesting. Here you have the Democrat in your race accusing you of something baselessly. It's a lie, but it's something that he himself did in a previous election. I find that very interesting, don't you?
Well, I find it to be quite typical of Terry McAuliffe, who will say anything he needs to say in order to win. I mean, the truth never got in front of anything that Terry McAuliffe ever says. And as we head into this really 2-minute offense election that we're having, and I'll just remind everybody that this election is going to start on September the 18th. And so we are in a sprint to win back Virginia. And the problem that Terry has right now is this is all he's got, is hurling accusations that contradict things he said in his past in order to try to pit neighbor against neighbor at a time when he unfortunately recognizes that he's not going to win. And in fact, he's a weak incumbent, and he's doing everything he can in order to try to divide Virginians. And I'm a different kind of candidate. I'm not a politician. I've been doing this for 20 weeks. He's been doing it for 40 years. And we absolutely are statistically tied, which is shocking him. And this is why we're actually running around Virginia speaking to Virginians about how we're going to lead forward together, and Terry's nowhere to be seen. And that's because he knows he's behind, he knows he can't win, and that's why he's just running the same old playbook that has been the playbook for him his entire life, which is to say whatever he needs to say, whenever he needs to say it, regardless of what he said historically. And I can't wait to lead Virginia in a different direction.
You know, I've seen some comments from the McAuliffe team, and he's been tweeting about it, really trying to pressure you on debates, saying, I want to do 5 debates, and then they're not sure how many debates they're going to do and what are they scared of. Usually, the candidate who's in a position of strength is not the one sort of, puffing out chests and throwing down gauntlets about the number of debates. I think that's sort of an interesting move from someone who at least would like people to think that he's the front runner or the favorite. It could be that he's spent his entire life, as you said, in politics, and he feels like debates are sort of home cooking for him, whereas, in your business background, it's a little bit different. Are you guys going to commit to a certain number of debates at some point? And what do you make of this demand that they keep talking about, that they want to have 5 debates?
Well, first, I can't wait to debate Terry McAuliffe, because he's going to have to stand up and defend his failed record. He's going to have to stand up and defend his positions, which are on the wrong side of every single policy initiative that Virginians want to see. Virginians want to see jobs. They don't want to see right to work go away. Virginians want to see their schools based on a standard of excellence, not critical race theory and closed schools. And Virginians want to see safe communities, not communities that see their police heroes actually not just defunded, but demoralized. And these are the issues that Virginians want to talk about. So I can't wait to debate Terry McAuliffe. We've agreed to a couple debates already. But it is amazing when you actually see a weak incumbent chasing me and actually spending time worrying about how many debates we're going to have as opposed to out meeting voters and talking about the issues. And this is why Virginians are just tired of these career politicians. Even his own party said that that the Democrats don't want to recycle, tired old set of policies and politicians. And that's what Virginians are standing up saying in mass is we're ready for Glenn Youngkin to be our governor, and we're not going to vote for a recycled politician.
You just invoked critical race theory, and McAuliffe reacted to that. I know this is a very big controversy, what's being taught in schools. Schools that were open, at least. In Northern Virginia, that's been a very big issue for the entire academic year, with teachers' unions and Democrats aligning to keep kids out of classrooms, sort of flying in the face of science and what we know is best for those students. Then there were other schools being renamed. Apparently, Thomas Jefferson is too offensive now in parts of Northern Virginia. A Virginian himself, a founding father, they've been stripping his name off of at least one prominent school. The debate has been percolating elsewhere. There's this question about entrance exams and merit being tossed out and instead turning to some vague set of equity requirements to get in. All of this is happening. We've seen it on video. We've seen parents reacting very negatively. McAuliffe looks at all of it, and he's called it a right-wing conspiracy, which is interesting. That's, of course, the line that Hillary Clinton, his very close friend, used repeatedly, the vast right-wing conspiracy. I guess Virginia parents aren't to believe their own eyes and ears because Terry McAuliffe tells them that they're wearing tinfoil hats for seeing what's right in front of their nose.
Guy, this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. I mean, our schools are in a state of chaos, and thank goodness for parents and teachers who are willing to stand up for kids, because the politicians in Virginia certainly are not. We have this left liberal progressive philosophy that is led by Terry McAuliffe, who can't even begin to defend teaching critical race theory. Their only approach is to call people crackpots who say it's wrong. Well, this is parents from across the political spectrum, Republicans, independents, Democrats, parents all over Virginia standing up and saying, stop teaching my kids to hate one another. Everything is viewed through a lens of race. And therefore, our kids are pitted against one another and given excuses or actually trying to hold them back from living the opportunity to dream the biggest dream they can. And that's what I want Virginia to fully be exposed to is a real curriculum. They will not teach critical race theory when I'm governor, and our kids will be absolutely allowed and encouraged to run as fast as they can. And to have my opponent demean and dismiss parents and teachers all over Virginia, again, just represents how far he is into the left liberal progressive establishment and why he is so removed from what Virginians want, which is a new day, a new path forward. And that's why I'm so encouraged by the groundswell of support that I'm seeing all across Virginia. I mean, I have Republicans, of course, supporting me, but I have independents and Democrats walking up to me in the street saying, Glenn, I'm a Democrat and I'm for you. Or Glenn, I was undecided, but not anymore. I'm for you. And this is why this race has turned into such a statement for standing up against this left liberal progressive agenda in Virginia, saying, no, we're taking our state back.
And I do think it's interesting because
through a lens of race, and therefore our kids are pitted against one another and given excuses or actually trying to hold them back from living the opportunity to dream the biggest dream they can. And that's what I want Virginia to fully be exposed to is a real curriculum. They will not teach critical race theory when I'm governor, and our kids will be absolutely allowed and encouraged to run as fast as they can. And to have my opponent demean and dismiss parents and teachers all over Virginia, again, just represents how far he is into the left liberal progressive establishment and why he is so removed from what Virginians want, which is a new day, a new path forward. And that's why I'm so encouraged by the groundswell of support that I'm seeing all across Virginia. I mean, I have Republicans, of course, supporting me, but I have independents and Democrats walking up to me in the street saying, Glenn, I'm a Democrat and I'm for you. Or, Glenn, I was undecided, but not anymore. I'm for you. And this is why this race has turned into such a statement for standing up against this left liberal progressive agenda, and Virginia saying, no, we're taking our state back.
You know, and I do think it's interesting because you're talking about that fixation on skin color and race, and it feels like some on the left are trying to drag the country backwards. It's the opposite of progress. We're regressing in some respects when it comes to race. And the left-wing base of the Democratic Party is in favor of all of this and the jargon and the divisiveness, and Terry McAuliffe is, at the very least, pandering to them. And, you know, it's all about race, except the irony here is, you know, they're going to constantly come after Republicans with the race card. Terry McAuliffe had a slate of interesting black candidates running against him in his primary. But he, you know, the white dude said, no, I used to be governor. I want my old job back. Sorry. And, you know, he ran and he won the nomination. Someone on his ticket, the attorney general, has admitted to wearing blackface. I guess the base is okay with that. I don't think it would ever be okay if it were a Republican who had done it, but maybe there's just a little asterisk. You get a pass if you're a Democrat. But if they talk about diversity, which they do constantly, and they talk about racial justice and equity and visibility, the Republican ticket in Virginia is more diverse than the Democratic ticket. They obsess on this stuff. They talk about it constantly. I feel like that's a little bit interesting from their perspective, what they say versus what these tickets actually look like.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is almost laughable because we, in fact, have the most diverse ticket that's ever run in Virginia. With Winsome Sears as our lieutenant governor, she was born in Jamaica. She's a black woman. She was a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, and she's an amazing candidate for lieutenant governor. She's going to win. And we have Jason Miyares as attorney general, who is the son of a woman who fled Castro's Cuba and now gets a chance to vote for him to be attorney general in Virginia. I mean, this is the American dream on display. And this is why, as Republicans, we are able to say to all Virginians, we can represent you. And we can lead Virginia to a new day where we come together and accomplish amazing things by actually turning back on our job machine and getting our economy moving so we stop losing out to Tennessee and North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and even Maryland, where our schools stand for excellence. They stand for excellence as opposed to the Terry McAuliffe, every child left behind philosophy, and where our communities are safe, where, in fact, you can let your kids go outside and play and not worry about them, or our parents and grandparents can go for walks, and the only thing they're worrying about is what to do tomorrow because today was such a great day. I mean, this is the Virginia we all want to build together, and this is not the Virginia that Terry McAuliffe stands for because he needs to divide us. He needs to pit neighbor against neighbor in order to win. And let me tell you, Virginians aren't buying it.
Last question. It's on the horse race, Glenn. I've seen the polling. There's one public poll that has it margin of error, McAuliffe slightly ahead. Your internal poll has it margin of error, maybe 2 points, McAuliffe ahead. Are you comfortable? Because you're saying all these people are coming up to you in the streets saying, oh, you know, we're flipping to you, we're excited about you. I think there's no doubt that this is extremely competitive in a toss-up. But given the national environment where Virginia typically goes against the party in power in Washington, D.C., are you comfortable being only statistically tied right now as opposed to ahead at this stage in the race?
Yeah, we feel very good about where we are because these polls were actually taken right after the Democrat primary, where Terry had been running TV and making a big show about why he was so great. And he's been around for 40 years. I mean, he was our governor. And I'm a new guy on the block. I've been doing this for 20 weeks. And the 20 week new guy on the block is absolutely statistically tied with the 40-year recycled politician because Virginians aren't buying the 40-year recycled politician. And this is why we feel so much momentum. because we're just getting started and he's finished. And this is why we're going to win this fall. This is why we're going to win this fall, starting on September the 18th, when everybody comes out to vote for a new Republican day.
And then the election day in November. It's not 2022, it's 2021. This is coming. It is upon us. It's a very important race, not just for the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, but across the whole country. It's going to be a dogfight. And Glenn Youngkin will be having you on, hopefully regularly between now and then. Glenn Youngkin, former CEO of the Carlyle Group, and he is the Republican nominee for governor in Virginia. Glenn, really appreciate it.
Guy, thank you so much. And folks can keep following us at youngkinforgovernor.com. And I just look forward to speaking with you next month.
Likewise. And with that, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.